Minamata Bay. For centuries, we fished her clean waters, swam with our children. We took the life-giving ocean for granted. But then we poured mercury into her, and our Minamata Bay and all of those who called her home were poisoned. Today we honor the people whom we poisoned with mercury, and we offer this promise: you are not forgotten. We will work tirelessly to make sure others do not suffer the way you have. The Minamata Convention on Mercury is the newest of a proud tradition of treaties that are addressing our planet's greatest challenges: chemicals, climate, biodiversity loss, corruption, social injustice. When humans are presented with great challenges, we are born to restore balance and predictability. Together, these conventions have made the world better. But on this day, we stand on the shores of Minamata Bay to begin the journey to make Mercury history.
Let us therefore fulfill the justified expectations of the peoples of the world to ensure a better quality of life for all.
The time for action is here now.
Then, a history-making moment.
History offers us perspective, a chance to see how far we've come. It helps us chart the future.
I declare open the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment.
What happened in Minamata, Japan, nearly 60 years ago isn't the only reason why we're here today. But it was our wake-up call.
What happened in Minamata many years ago was a catastrophe for humankind. And what we have now is not a new problem, it's a new solution.
The global community has agreed that this needs to be tackled at the global level through a legally binding instrument in order to have the impact that we are looking for the future of this planet, for the public health and for the environment.
Before we can rid the planet of mercury, we need to understand where and how it finds its way into our water, our food supply, and ultimately, us. More than 50 years after Minamata disease was discovered, unhealthy levels of mercury can be found in every corner of the planet, and they're growing at an alarming rate. Today, we are emitting more and more mercury than ever before. Mercury is in the air we breathe, our oceans and rivers. It's in our food. Power plants are burning record amounts of coal that emit mercury.
Mercury is a global pollutant. Once emitted into the atmosphere, it can travel around the globe.
Industrial manufacturing of plastics and cement release tons of mercury each year. And thousands of artisanal gold mines still use mercury to extract their gold.
We don't want Minamata sprouting up in the Philippines, in Indonesia, in Africa, and Latin America.
By naming the convention the Minamata Convention on Mercury, what we are saying is never again.
The GEF is on a mission to understand the challenges and the solutions ahead. They will head below ground and into the mines, and to remote mountain villages, to power and cement plants, and industrial sites. They will go to the front lines to see the people who are still using mercury, and those who found a way to sustain their livelihoods without it.
What we have here is an opportunity to act. Mercury is not simply a poisoning issue. At the end of the day, it's a development issue.
There is a call to action, and the time to act is now. The Minamata Convention will make a difference, but it will take a global effort. Among all of the commodities that we take from the earth, none is more valuable than gold. From ancient Egypt to today's luxury goods, gold has been a symbol of prosperity. But today, 20 million people aren't mining gold to get rich. They mine it to survive. Through hard work and determination, these small operations are often the driving economic engine for their entire community. 1/6 of the global supply of gold comes from operations like these. And where there is gold, there are miners like Americo and Estel of Colombia, and Joven from the Philippines, and others inside the mines of Peru and Burkina Faso, wherever people risk their lives to provide for their families. Some earn a few dollars, others a few hundred each day. The vast majority of them are still using mercury to extract their gold. But it comes at a high price for both the environment and the miners.
Small-scale gold mining communities pour mercury straight into the river. It's a very significant source of mercury because of the methodology that they use. They pour mercury into the drums and they discharge the effluent or the waste straight into the river. Imagine the amount of mercury that this sector is pouring into the water systems and contaminating the fish. It's going to impact not just their community, but also the downstream community.
Mercury is also released into the atmosphere, contaminating the air thousands of kilometers from the mine. Mining has a long tradition in small communities. It's part of their heritage. It's a driving economic force. Segovia, Colombia is a typical community that has a robust gold trade, mostly from small illegal operations that use mercury. An estimated 150 tons of mercury is emitted here every year as a result of the gold operations. The team is here because they need to see if it's even possible to eliminate mercury and at the same time allow miners to make a living. Their guide is Dr. Paul Cordy, a scientist who understands both sides of the issue. Dr. Cordy has worked here for a decade, studying the effects of mercury on the miners and the entire community. This is an operation where UNIDO and other agencies have been working to help the owner, Fernando Gobles, transition his operation from using nearly 60 kilograms of mercury to a fraction of that. It's a busy day as the ball mills that crush the ore turn at full capacity. Just a year ago, Fernando would add large amounts of mercury to help concentrate the gold inside. The amount of mercury he used wasn't based on science. With training and new knowledge, he uses just 1/6 of the mercury with the same results. Now other miners are copying Fernando's technique, but even a small amount of mercury can be very dangerous.
Right now he's opening the ball mill. It's been running for 4 to 6 hours or so, maybe more.
Is there mercury in there?
There's mercury in each one of these ball mills, a few milliliters each. What's happening right now is that as they open up all of these ball mills, the mercury inside is being heated when it's being milled, right? And so when you open it up, all that mercury just, whoa. Right now, as we speak, we are in an environment which is unhealthy.
Aware of the impact on his health, Fernando is in the process of phasing out the use of mercury entirely.
Do you use other techniques other than mercury here?
¿Y se usan otros técnicos, otra tecnología aquí que aparte de mercurio?
Sí, en este momento estamos trabajando también con...
Yeah, so right now they're making a transition from mercury to using only sodium cyanide in solution to dissolve the gold.
Estimamos que en cuestión de un mes...
They hope to be completely rid of mercury in a month or two.
But, in the meantime, mercury is still being used. This is a scene that you'll find at most small-scale mines. A mercury-laden ball that is massaged and rolled to compact the gold particles. It's absorbed into the skin and the remnants are flushed into a nearby stream. Mercury was used to amalgamate the gold particles. Now it's time to burn it off, so Fernando can sell the precious metal.
That's amalgamated gold. They're gonna burn this to get rid of the mercury. Vamos a ver el quemador. Let's go see the burning.
The small ball of gold and mercury amalgam is taken to one of many small shops that will burn off the mercury, leaving just the gold. As the amalgam burns, the mercury vapors are released into the air, the same air that everyone in Segovia is breathing. And with dozens of smelt shops burning off their mercury, the readings on Dr. Cordy's sophisticated sensor are off the chart.
Unequivocally, that's a major source of mercury. It's going everywhere. And sure, it disperses quickly here, but then what about in all these stores and all these shops? They act as reservoirs.
Everyone knows about the mercury levels, and the local clinic is where they go to get tested. This patient is not a miner, but he knows that by just breathing the air, he's exposed. And he's concerned because he's noticed uncontrollable shaking in his arms, a classic symptom of mercury exposure. Marianela Mercado is a nurse practitioner who often delivers the results of the tests.
La verdad, es preocupante. A mí me da...
She says she's concerned because the symptoms are obvious, and many people process the gold with children nearby. She tells them mercury is affecting their health and that we'd be much better off using other practices. A little later in the morning, Fernando Gobles arrives at the clinic to have his blood sampled for mercury. Aware that the results will likely be higher than normal, he says he's more committed than ever to eliminate the use of mercury.
Mi mensaje para todos ellos es que la minería es una actividad que es muy rentable.
My message to the miners would be that mining is a really profitable activity, but with the new sort of global awareness of toxic substances like mercury, we have to change with the times, and that, yeah, you need to feed your family, but you also need to leave your family clean water and clean air and a clean planet so that we can keep on living here.
Mining gold responsibly is ultimately a decision that's made by the miner. And that's precisely why the team has come to see Americo Mosquera and his wife Estelle, the pioneers behind a technique known as oro verde, or green gold. The small mine sits along a creek within a tropical forest. Using mercury here would have serious environmental consequences. Artisanal miners around the world have a lot in common. The work they do is physically demanding, and the techniques are generally the same. Gathering ore that contains gold, followed by milling, and then the use of a sluice. Panning is often the final process, when a miner has to find a way to get the gold particles to bond. Now it's time to see the process that Americo is famous for, using local plants instead of mercury to separate the gold from the sediment.
So this is truly green gold. Using natural leaf extract, he was able to separate out all the non-gold and platinum materials, and it's over here. And they will take the gold and platinum, dry it, and then they'll be able to separate the two metals and be able to sell them separately. Truly green gold.
Americo has some advice to pass on to other miners. He says using mercury might be more profitable, but the risks far outweigh the benefits. And hopefully, with more training and improved techniques, all miners can be mercury-free. We've come to the Gaang mine in the Philippines, where village elders banned the use of mercury after they saw the impact it had on the people. There are more than 100 tunnels that are operated by licensed miners. The ore contains high concentrations of gold and produces 15 kilos of refined gold every month. While the ore containing the gold comes from the tunnels, it's the water that powers the ball mills. Dozens of mills wind through the stream, each one operated by licensed miners. The Gaang mine has eliminated the use of mercury by simply improving their sluicing and milling techniques.
We've come to the top of this mountain to see how gold is mined without using mercury. Here they use borax, and Richard is going to tell us how that's done.
Before we apply the borax, we still have to do some final cleaning of the gold concentrate. Our miner friend here, Rohoven, is going to use a magnet to pick up the iron impurities on the gold concentrate before finally applying the borax. And he will do one final panning before the borax application. So we're looking at around less than 10 grams of gold right now. 2 years ago, he was using mercury. Now he's totally stopped. The goal here is to have a very good gold concentrate by minimizing the impurities. That's gold.
The GEF is helping countries phase out the use of mercury with sustainable solutions like this one that we've seen here. Borax and green gold are examples of sustainable solutions that the GEF and its partners will help replicate and scale up in mining communities around the world. 6 hours west of Manila, the province of Camarines Norte is largely known for two things: agriculture and gold mining. With significant gold deposits in the hills, locals have come to believe there is also gold in these rice fields. Arlene Galvez is with the NGO Ban Toxics. She takes the team to one of many fields where locals are using a technique that is both dangerous and illegal.
So they're currently working in this area.
The field is peppered with hundreds of holes. It looks like a war zone.
This is so deep, very deep.
Landowners allow miners to dig here for a cut of the profits. Diego is a fearless 20-year-old who stands to profit the most because his job is the most dangerous. He's about to submerge into a muddy hole 10 meters deep. His air supply is from a dirty diesel generator. His ears and nose protected with cotton. We've mounted a camera to try to capture the work, but the instant he submerges, it just goes black. He'll stay down for as long as 3 hours, handing up buckets of mud that will be sifted, and then the mercury is applied.
Of course, the people, they don't easily understand the effect of mercury because of the traditional thinking that they'll get profit from it. But if we will not use mercury, then what are we going to use? That's the first question that they will ask. Mercury is poisonous, and there's a lot of people already getting sick because of mercury. So they want to know how are they going to do it without using mercury with the same profit that they're getting.
The compression mines are yet another reminder that the use of mercury and livelihoods are intertwined. With millions of miners like Diego around the world who operate without a formal permit, providing them with a pathway to becoming legally recognized is one of the goals of the Minamata Convention. In the arid highlands of Peru exist some of the best examples of both socially and environmentally responsible mining operations. When we think of best practices, the Alusa and Sotrami mines are at the top of the list. The environmental impacts of mining are usually negative, but Aurelsa has made a real attempt to minimize them. The company avoids entirely the use of mercury to purify gold, and its use of cyanide to dissolve the gold from ore involves constant recycling and is done with strict safety protocols.
This is the ore mixed with cyanide, and it drips and goes down there.
So this is a completely different process from what we saw in Colombia. There's no miners squeezing out mercury balls combined with the ore here.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that they use cyanide here to leach the gold out. So it looks like water, but it's cyanide. With water, the miners can work safely. They're not poisoning themselves with mercury, and they're still getting a lot of gold out of this rock here.
This process of using cyanide is far more efficient and captures about 60% of the gold, whereas mercury only captures 40%. In hard rock mining operations like Satrami, the gold is trapped within the rock. To free the gold, the rock has to be crushed. With proper crushing and gravity separation, about 60% of the gold can be separated. But no crushing process can completely free the gold. That is where methods such as cyanide are used to dissolve the gold so that the additional 40% of the gold can be extracted. Cyanide is harmless if properly used, and both Arelsa and Satrami have strict safety protocols to protect the miners and the environment. Now, the gold is ready for its journey to a refinery, where it will receive special handling as a certified mercury-free gold. Argor is one of the world's largest gold refineries that's capable of receiving mercury-free artisanal gold and ensuring that it remains segregated throughout the refining process.
So now we're going to follow the metal from the very minute it enters the refinery until it becomes a product.
So this is coming straight from the mine?
This is straight from the mine. The mine has produced material, it has been melted, it has been put on an armored truck, it has traveled halfway around the world, and it got here fresh this morning.
And then this is what you take and you melt it down and you further refine it?
Correct, exactly. So this material will take a few days to refine.
Okay.
We sit in the middle between the source and the market is asking for artisanal gold, whether it's for a product like a kilobar or whether it's a semi-finished product or a watch component. The market wants it, so we need to be able to supply that.
So how much of the gold that comes in here or globally is artisanal versus a large-scale mine?
So if you imagine that this is the world's gold supply in 1 year, these two guys have been made by the industrial mines all over the world, and 15 to 20% is made by the artisanal miners all over the world. So
we want to see more of this.
Absolutely.
Mercury-free.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Eventually, gold, either produced using mercury or mercury-free, usually ends up at one of dozens of gold refineries globally.
1 kilobar, fresh from production.
Wow. So 4 of these then is what came from that raw material that we saw today.
Exactly. So these 4 would have come out from that single bar.
Here in Switzerland, one of the world's largest gold refineries, Argor works with artisanal miners who are producing gold without mercury. This is important for getting to zero mercury, since having committed refineries and consumers provides a guaranteed supply chain for mercury-free artisanal gold.
So finally, pure gold, after going to all of those countries, seeing all those people working in mines and refining and sluicing, we finally see what they've been working so hard for, to produce this gold that we have right here in our hands.
And the best part is we know it's mercury-free. We know it's had a dedicated supply line and it's better for the planet.
While removing mercury from the gold supply chain involves millions of artisanal miners, you can achieve the same impact by removing mercury from a few large-scale industries. As the economies in developing countries rise, so does their demand for energy, cement, and plastics, all of which emit large amounts of mercury. Removing mercury from coal is not an easy process. And developing countries rely on coal as a major energy source to drive their economic growth. The elimination of mercury in coal cannot come at the cost to development. One of the goals of the Minamata Convention is to provide a pathway for these industries to reduce their mercury emissions. We've come to one of Vietnam's largest coal-fired power plants, where the US government and UNEP are working with Vietnam's Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment to sample the emissions that will serve as the basis of installing mercury-reducing technologies.
We are here to assist government of Vietnam to arrive at their mercury emission inventory numbers. And this mercury emissions, majority of them, come out through the stack as a gas phase concentration of mercury. Mercury, of course, is a very potent neurotoxin.
Here in Vietnam, the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment, with the help of the US government and UNEP, are working towards a solution. They know that to fix a problem, you first have to understand it.
Hey, Peter.
We have some samples for you.
We have the data samples from the stock test.
The first run. It's a two-section track. We've already analyzed the first section, which is what we consider the analytical section. The second section is just for quality assurance, just to make sure that the mercury wasn't breaking through. The analysis takes around 75 seconds.
So this is actually showing the amount of mercury that's coming out of there right now.
This is exactly the mass of mercury that we collected in that volume of sample.
Wow.
Look at it go.
It's off the chart, man.
Yes.
Literally off the chart.
And it's coming back down.
And then this will tell you how much, right?
That's right. It will do the integration for me. Okay. And so actually we're about twice the amount of mercury that we were seeing yesterday. We actually have 20 micrograms per cubic meter in the stack.
Okay.
At the moment.
For someone who doesn't know, can you tell us where exactly the mercury is coming from in the coal?
Yes, coal is like a little periodic table. It has, of course, majority of it is carbon. That's why we burn it to extract heat energy from it. But it contains traces of elements, among them traces of heavy metals like mercury, lead, arsenic, cadmium, all of them toxic.
So we're standing 300 feet or so above the ground in open air, looking out at what I've never seen before together, a coal plant and a cement plant together. These are two of the largest sources of mercury in the world.
And the thing that makes these two really kind of important in the bigger picture is they're here because they're fueling cities. The power is going directly into the cities, and the cement is building all of the buildings that you see in cities.
Countries like Vietnam and others where you have large industry, large manufacturing, they really need to understand their mercury uses.
So this is a critical piece of the puzzle that the Jeff and its partners can play. You know, at the power plant we saw U.S. State Department and UNEP going there, training them how to do stack tests so that they can measure their mercury emissions. Here at this cement plant, they don't even know what's coming out of the stack. They haven't done the analysis yet. So they're really going to need help to build capacity to be able to just test what's coming out of these things before they can take action to reduce it.
Our journey ends where the story of mercury begins. Minamata Bay. Just 60 years ago, this was the site of the world's largest mercury poisoning incident, and it is not forgotten. These photos tell the story of the people who suffered from the mercury poisoning in the 1950s. Mr. Masami Ogata was just a boy when people in his village began to get sick. Today, he volunteers at the Minamata Municipal Museum as a storyteller. The photo gallery is a painful reminder of a time in his life when everyone he knew became sick from eating the fish that were poisoned with mercury.
尾形さんとして今一緒に歩いていただいたことにさらに加えて
Naoko asks Mr. Ogata what message he would like to convey to the world.
まず一言で、言うならですね、私たちが経験した水俣病、
He asks only that the painful experiences and the lessons learned should not be wasted.
世界中の人たちがですね
The joy has returned to Minamata. Playgrounds and soccer fields now sit on land that was once toxic soil. The fish are safe to eat. But in the shadows of the good news is the reminder that a huge price has been paid by this small community. This seaside memorial isn't just for those who suffered here 60 years ago. It's for everyone affected by mercury poisoning today. There is a call to action, and the time to act is now.
The worst case scenario is we're going to see a lot of Minamatas, and that's not acceptable. What we have here is an opportunity to act. Solutions are possible.
Our mission has taken us deep inside mines, to power plants and industrial sites. We've seen the problems up close, but more importantly, we've been inspired by some of the solutions that are already taking place.
That the task for us is going to be, to implement this new convention is going to be to find the right techniques that we can use in specific communities to help them move away from mercury.
With mercury, the challenge will be to actually understand what each country and what each part of that country requires before we jump in, and not take the view which we've taken before that if you work on this type of chemical in this type of industry, this is the solution, because in this case that's not going to be the case.
Removing mercury from the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the water we drink is a mission that began in Minamata and ends in every corner of our planet.